Everybody, you're going to be hearing Connor in the background while we go through this as we prep everything. First things first, we got to make sure everything is working appropriately with the live stream. So just bear with us here for a moment while we try to figure this out, make sure everything's working appropriately, considering this is the first time we've launched this.
So right now it says waiting for Nathan Savage. You hit go live?
Yep, recording. 1 second. Cool, we're going live. Fantastic, looks like we're good here. So now that we're live, how do you feel about the video? By the way, anybody watching, just bear with me here as we figure this out. How do we feel about the video quality?
So it still says upcoming. Let me try and refresh and see if it's up yet.
Yeah, refresh. Hey, Michael, thanks for the update. I'm double checking just a handful of things quality-wise. Can you give me an update? How are we sounding from audio and from a video standpoint? Hey, everybody.
Yep, you're live. Perfect.
Fantastic. Okay, so
you're good to go.
Good to go on everything, Connor? We're good to go?
You're good to go. Yep.
Fantastic. Alrighty then. Well, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get moving here. I'm going to turn off the FaceTime with Connor. Seems like Connor, can you just confirm, text me the audio quality and make sure video is good?
Right now, audio sounds great.
Cool. All right, just double check it with me and I'll chat with you here in just a bit.
Talk to you
soon. Bye. Video quality does not look so good. Let me do a couple things here to help. Most likely just from that. So worst case scenario, we could just switch this mic over or this camera over. Looks like there's a giant smudge. That's funny. Okay, so let me see what I can do here. Looks like it's not going to let me adjust the camera, which is a little strange. Sorry, everybody, this will be something that just happens whenever we initially launch something new. This is just inevitable. So it's not going to let me switch cameras. So I think I know what it is. Fuck it, we'll just throw lights off for everything. You know what, I'm willing to bet what it is. Yeah, Bruce, what it is the camera lens is broken. Okay, so we'll fix the camera lens for tomorrow. Let's go ahead and get started here. So let's go ahead and talk about what we're doing here, the purpose of this show, everything along those lines. Everybody is here because you're here to get a career in software engineering. And after sitting down last night, I'm going to pull up some notes that really made me think through what's the best way to really describe how we're helping people here. I'm going to open up my notes here because I love what I put down. A large portion of people that are listening to this podcast right now, one of the best ways to really describe the situation they're in is to walk through this idea that you've been preconditioned to a specific way at this point in your life. After spending a lot of time on Reddit, after spending a lot of time looking at kind of the industry as a whole, a lot of people are really struggling, not with the skills per se, but the transition from who they are to the professional life. So the purpose of this podcast, above all else, is to help with that preconditioning that's kind of working against you when it comes to having to learn new things, all these aspects. It's about how to kind of turn pro in a sense. So today, we're going to be going through a wide variety of different videos. We're going to start off with something that we're going to do every single episode. We're going to read a daily law from Robert Greene, something that I love. If you don't know who he is, go follow him. Then after that, we're going to move over to a reaction video to somebody that I absolutely love that I think is going to be wildly helpful for all of you. This individual's name is Dr. K. It's somebody that I love. He has a YouTube channel called Gamers, Happy Gamers, something like that. We'll go through it in just a moment. But to start everything off, we're going to start off with this video from Robert Greene, or the Daily Law. And so I'm actually going to start off with yesterday's kind of daily law, because after I was reading it and listening to it, it really jumped out to why so many people are really struggling with making a career transition, right? And then what really jumped up about it was the aspect of not having good self-awareness and not having a solid understanding of their consciousness. right? So I'm going to describe that as we go through this. So this is for October 6th, then we'll read October 7th. And if any of this jumps out to you, please, in the chat, let me know. This is meant to be something you could watch passively, that you could attend passively, all of those things. But when something jumps out, let me know in the chat. So I want to start off here. October 6th, see into your own nature. This is so powerful, what I'm about to walk you through. We're very complicated. We don't know where ideas come from. We don't know where our emotions come from, but you can get closer to that. You can have some degree of clarity. You can start to see the kind of shadow side or that stranger within yourself. And that's really the only hope, because when you're in denial, you don't realize that you're being a narcissist. You don't realize that you're being governed by your emotions. You could think that you're superior to other people just because of the opinions that you hold. You can let your shadow side come out without even being aware of it. You need to come to terms with the fact that 95% of your ideas and opinions are not your own. They come from other people who have taught you that. From what you're reading on the internet, from what other people are saying and doing. You're a conformist. That's who you are. I'm like that, and everybody is like that. And you realize that only by throwing some light on yourself and realizing that these qualities, these flaws that are built into us, they are inside you too. Only then can you begin to overcome them and then be able to have productive purposes. Question, question, question. Don't assume that the reason you feel something and that it's right just because you feel it. And in that kind of process, you'll become rational. You'll become somebody who can use empathy. You will have the ability to judge people properly and accept them for who they are, as opposed to continually moralizing, wishing people that were something they're not. You have a much smoother path through life, and you'll be much calmer, much more peaceful without all the emotional baggage that drags you down. But it starts with looking inwards and questioning yourself and not assuming that everything you feel or think is right. Moving forward, this is the daily law. Ask yourself, where did I pick up this belief? Is it true? Would I agree with it if I heard it fresh today? Right? And then he puts it specifically, stop assuming that everything you feel or think is right. Now, before I answer this, seems like there's a lot of people on Discord right now asking some questions. Just getting started. Cool. The point that really jumps out about this is when I've interviewed a lot of different people, we actually just had to let somebody go, and I want to talk about this story. He was a really nice individual as a whole, right? Super, super nice guy, but there's a fundamental problem. He was a great interviewer. This was somebody who knew how to interview really well, but when he got on the job, he failed dramatically. The question is, why did he fail dramatically? Why did he not have success? So I sat down with my sales manager and we had a long conversation about this. And one of the things we found is he was one of the individuals that had a consistent habit for job hopping. And anytime there were problems, the problem wasn't him. The problem was always something else. That's a really interesting thing to be mindful of. See, when you're going through the process of learning how to code, learning a new skill set, anything along those lines, the most important thing to realize is that when you're starting to struggle, what do you typically do? A lot of us, when we start to struggle, we look for things to validate how we're feeling rather than to challenge us to help us push forward. So you start going to things like Reddit. You start going to all kinds of Discord or Slack groups or Facebook groups or whatever it is, and you're looking for validation on why you're failing rather than looking for something that's going to help you challenge and push forward to understand how to actually grow. This daily law, I felt, was the best thing that I could ever start this show with, this Mastery and Obsession show, right? Learning how to building your craft, learning how to build or turn this process into an obsession to build that life you want. And so really asking this question back to all of you, ask yourself, where did I pick up this belief? Is it true? What would I do with it if I heard it fresh today? This applies to everything you're going. This applies to your ideas of the rich people are just wanting to burn the world down. This applies to your ideas of looking at presidents. This applies to your idea of thinking if you're good enough to get the job you want, right? So many people say you can't get into software engineering unless you have a degree. You can't do this unless you have X, Y, Z. What is the validity of that person? Should you trust that person? Are they somebody that you can actually look into? And by the way, I'm keeping a very close eye on the chat. So if any of these things jump out at you, please let me know so we can go and expand on them. And now what we're going to move into is today's daily law. It's going to be about rationality, much shorter. And then we're going to move on to the video of the day that we're going to be reacting to. I'm very excited about it, but I wanted to first address this. And I want to just do a big thank you to Michael, to Patrick, Papados, everybody that's in the chat. I really appreciate y'all being here. So let's move over to today's. October 7th, rationality, a simple definition. Clearly, the words rational and irrational can be quite loaded. People are always labeling those who disagree with them as irrational. What we need is a simple definition that can be applied as a way of judging as accurately as possible the difference between the two. The following shall serve as our barometer, essentially the truthfulness of it. We can constantly feel emotions as they continually infect our thinking, making us veer towards thoughts that please us and soothe our egos. Exactly what we just said. Do you have a tendency to seek out the things that make you feel better, that validate how you feel rather than challenge you for growth? The entire purpose of this show is to challenge for growth rather than necessarily validate how you feel and help you feel stagnant. It is possible to not have our inclinations and feelings somehow involved in what we think. Rational people are aware of this and through introspection and effort are able to they're able to some extent to subtract emotions from their thinking and counteract their effect. Irrational people have no awareness. They rush into action without carefully considering the ramifications and consequences. In all cases, the degree of their awareness represents the difference. Rational people can readily admit their own irrational tendencies, and they need to be vigilant. On the other hand, irrational people are highly emotional when challenged about their emotions, roots of their decisions. They're incapable of introspection and learning. Their mistakes make them increasingly defensive. So the daily law, how would you rate yourself, your actions, your behaviors on the scale of being somebody that is rational? Are you somebody, when we look at your past behavior, that you have mastered the ability to be mindful, to just be fucking reasonable? We don't need to be wild here. We just want you to be reasonable. Do you have a track record of that? I'm actually going to show y'all a really dramatic example of this that I saw. This caught me so off guard. I couldn't believe it when I saw this. It was in the career coaching channel of DevSlopes. You know, Beanie, our head of career coaching, has put so much effort into helping our students out, right? So much effort. And this individual, I saw it today. I just couldn't believe this. I'm going to share my screen here. Share screen. We're going to go to a window. We're going to go to career coaching here. This caught me off guard so much. I just couldn't believe it. Let me make sure that the right screen is sharing. I'm going to give it a small delay because I have a small delay between what's happening and what the YouTube channel is showing. I hope that y'all could see the career coaching channel here in just a moment. Fantastic. It's showing everything. This caught me off guard so much. So Beanie had a call with the entire student base. One of the things is all the students were begging for calls early in the day. So Beanie was like, fuck it. Yeah, we could do that. So she started running a bunch of early morning calls to support the students who needed morning calls. And this random student named God's Chosen, whoever that is, said, I'm getting tired of y'all's notifications. So done with y'all. Bye. And Alexander was like, hey, you can mute the channel. Not a big deal. Nah, sir, I'm tired of y'all. Done. Right? And everybody was like, what is happening? Right? This is nuts. What is taking place here? Again, why are you so cranky? Do you not want to be a code engineer? Like, what is happening here? Fun fact, banhammer. Like, this is such inappropriate behavior. Like, we're never going to allow this kind of just nasty behavior in here. So when I saw, all the students that are in here, they saw that. Like, the guy's crashing out. It's absolutely absurd. Now, let's take a step away. It's very easy for us to sit here and be like, what an idiot. This guy's insane, yada, yada. The objective here is not just to be spiteful of that person and say this guy's a fucking idiot. It's not that. The objective is to be like, why is this happening? Why is somebody at a place where this is taking place? And I want to guarantee to some strong extent this has happened to all of you. We all have the habit to do some dumb shit like that. So why do we have the habit of doing those things? Well, first and foremost, it comes from our irrational behavior. We struggle to control the bullshit that is happening on a daily basis. And then we wonder, why are employers not hiring us? Well, as a software engineer, as a marketer, as a sales rep, and anything, as a professional, you have the capacity to put all those feelings to the side and get the job done. Everything that's happening in your personal life, you have the ability to consolidate it, put it to the side for now, and handle what's in front of you, right? As a CEO, my sole job is to essentially be a borderline sociopath at times, to put aside emotions and feelings to focus on the problem at hand and be able to solve that. You don't need to do it to that extent, but you must be able to put those thoughts and feelings aside. If you don't, dude, you're fucked. You're not going to be able to make that transition. So this is such a good starting point for what we have today. Because the purpose of today, the video that we're going to be going through, is from a guy named Dr. K that I absolutely love. And again, everybody, I want to see the takeaways that you have as we're going through this, the things that are jumping out to you. And I'm seeing Sean. I mean, obviously, a lot of y'all saw this guy going a little AWOL. I do think that practicing mindfulness really helps keep those rational thoughts at bay. That's everything. If you can't do it, I don't know how you're going to get anywhere in life, just frankly. And this is a really hard thing to think about. How are you going to be able to support people? So what we're going to get ready to transition over to is Dr. K talking about this. And so what I love about this, guys, when I look at you guys as students in this audience, the connection is so close. Dr. K is somebody who has really filled the job of who I think is what the world needs right now for somebody who's a mental health expert supporting the students. I think that I do an amazing job from the empowerment aspect, but I want to give a glimpse for all the students here into what's actually taking place. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share this video. We're going to go into it. I'm going to check the chat real fast. Patrick, I saw that you said something. Usually can hit when you're super emotional. That's when I quit early because I have poor performance and more effective coaching to resolve my problems. Wow. Patrick, I actually think this is something we can really go in depth on to solve. This is a really big obstacle. I think that this show, play it in the background 24/7. I think that this show is going to be something that will change your life as long as you're patient enough to keep it playing in the background and be mindful things. We are not going to solve these problems overnight. Let's make that very clear. These are not things that you will solve overnight, but these are things that will help you exponentially with more time. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share this video. Share the screen. We're going to go to the window. We're going to share. Yep, why you're not getting this. Okay, yeah, sure. Boom. So we're sharing from Dr. K right now. I'm going to be watching the chat as we're going through this. And one question I have for all of you, please let me know what's jumping out for you about this. This is going to be one of the most important things that we're going to be watching today. And it's so crucial that we pay very close attention to what we're covering here. Before we click play, I'm going to check the chat. Usually can hit you super emotional. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and start this.
I didn't learn anything. There's so much I don't know. I'm so incompetent. No. Instead of what you say is, here are the skills that I learned. I'm proficient in A, B, and C. And you've got to be proficient in something if you've got a portfolio. Here are the 6 things that I'm really hoping to learn because I think they'd really enhance my ability to make graphics. All that stuff that you don't know. Okay. I feel like I won't be employable when I graduate.
And by the way, I want to know how many of you feel this way going through a program. When these things jump out to you, let me know in the chat so I can be mindful of this for all future content as well.
So I'm a graphic design student, and I mean, how the jokes of the unemployed art student go. But even if I have trouble finding a job due to mostly external reasons, I think I can cope with it. If things are looking pessimistic, I can accept lower paying jobs and move towns, etc. Not an insanely big deal. However, the thing is that my university doesn't really teach us how to design. They just give us projects and make us try our best. It's too late for me to transfer, and I'm honestly very frustrated with my uni, but you may say, why don't you teach yourself how to design? That's the thing. When I tried to do that, I barely had time for the insane workload I was given. It's always a balancing act between learning the basics of what you're in uni for and doing assignments. I just don't know what to do anymore. There's so many things I don't know, and I don't trust myself to learn them over the summer, as the past 2 were spent being depressed in my home. I'm already picturing the crappy state of my portfolio as I try to apply for jobs. No one cares if it's because my uni is a job is a job. I'm already seeing this now as I struggle at my work internship, and I honestly feel horrible. Like a mix of self-hate and incredible frustration towards my uni. I seriously don't know what to do.
This is super interesting. Before we go any further, is everybody noticing it's the uni's fault, it's the university, right? That's a really interesting thing to be mindful of. Now, I want to emphasize, once you start going down this path, it's almost like a fucking downhill roller coaster. It's so hard to come back once you start going down this thought process of everything's wrong, yada, yada, yada. You have to do what you can to control this as much as you can before it turns into a downhill spiral and you turn into an emotional, irrational wreck.
Okay. So this, unfortunately, is a problem that I've seen a lot during, especially COVID. So what's happening is I've seen a lot of university students feeling more and more pessimistic about their opportunities, their work opportunities after college. So a lot of people are feeling like really, really, not good about this. So what I'm seeing a lot of is that sometimes we have college students who are like afraid that their university is not preparing them the way that they're supposed to be. Universities aren't teaching, right? Especially with like online school and stuff like that. Like it's been really hard because the quality of education that most people are getting is going down. Furthermore, they're so busy and or so mentally burnt out that the independent learning that they should be doing to fix things is like just so hard because they're either mentally burnt out or there's a lot of busy work or other crap like that. So it's sort of like you're placed in this situation, you can't transfer. You're not getting the skills that you need. You don't have time to teach yourself the stuff. And so you're kind of just like doomed, right? And there's this kind of attitude that people have that I'm screwed because I'm not going to be employable. And like, I can see, it's sort of like you're on a train that's headed towards a cliff. And you can see the cliff coming. You can see that there's a railroad, like there's like railroad tracks that are going straight towards the cliff. Like you can't change direction. You can't slow down the train. You're like committed. And like there's the cliff and you're kind of screwed.
How many of you feel like you're in the situation, right? So I saw what, I don't, Affinity, I don't know your actual name. If you can drop your name in the chat just so I can know, so I can keep up with you, I can ask the mentors about your progress. Everybody, please put your stuff in the program. But what I'm reading right here is, I feel like I'm learning fast enough I don't feel like I'm learning fast enough to catch up, but to excel in this field. That's okay. First and foremost, there's levels to this. And I'm going to stop the sharing for just a moment. There's levels to actually learning. So I want to talk about this. I'm actually going to open up Excalidraw, and we'll come back to this in just a moment. But I want to show you why it's okay that you're going so fucking slow, right? For a lot of you, you have this process where you're starting so slow, and it feels like you're an idiot. It feels like you're doing a terrible job. It feels like you have no hope. Let's talk about some of the reasons why this is happening. So first and foremost, when I'm learning, it feels like A, I'm not digesting anything. B, I can't remember anything. C, I'm not retaining. D, I'm not smart enough for this. How many of you, by a show of hands, and just let me know in the chat, feel this way when you're starting, right? Just starting. So I'm going to give a little bit of context while I wait for these responses. As a black belt in jiu-jitsu, right? I've had a lot of fights. I've had a lot of fights, right? I fought a lot of people. I'll share some of those fights down the road. Actually, I'm going to show one of those here in a little bit. I'm going to show you one of the fights that I had to give context, right? When you learn, you must be playful, right? So when you're first starting, you're the equivalent of a black belt or a white belt in jiu-jitsu. So this equals white belt. I'm gonna ignore that. I'm gonna delete all this. This is so ugly. I'll do it in the actual chat like this. So when you first get started, you're a white belt. And white belt means you just need to survive, right? When you're a white belt, it's not, thank you so much, by the way, for the names, everybody. I just want to know who's here. When you're a white belt, you just need to survive, right? So when you're just starting, right, and you're experiencing all these things, instead of thinking this, like this is what you're in, this mode is just survival mode. You're getting started and you feel all of these inadequacies. If we boil all of this down, if we boil it down, these equal inadequacies. Sorry, don't judge me too much. I think I just completely misspelled this. Yeah, you know, whatever. Inadequacies. All of these are your inadequacies. These are your insecurities. They're literally everything of you not feeling smart enough, right? So how do we overcome all of this, right? The solution equals fun. Learn to enjoy the process and have fun. I'm going to show y'all something so unhinged right now, right? So I'm going to keep this open while I pull this other link up, right? And it's okay for you to feel like you're never going to catch up, right? It's completely okay for feeling this way, that you're not going to catch up all of this stuff, right? So I'm going to explain, I'm going to show y'all a very unhinged example of why it's okay to feel the way that you do. This is so unhinged. I'm going to show y'all a fight to give examples, right? So by the way, one of the reasons why I'm doing this, Bruce has been preaching to me, Nathan, you know, let people see like that you're a jiu-jitsu black belt, that you've learned a lot of different skills, all these different aspects. And it's a really good way for people to better understand like kind of your background and how you were able to learn stuff. So what I'm going to do here, because a lot of you, if you're stuck in survival mode right now, right? If you're stuck in survival mode, which is all of you, you need to learn how to turn this into a fun process. The more you're in survival equals seeing red. Fun equals seeing green. Your brain will process survival, inadequacies, all these things as stress, and you won't be able to learn new things, right? That is a fact. There's so much data behind when you're trying to learn something new and you're in a stressed out state, your capacity to learn new things is fucking next to none. It's so difficult to do. Now, when you start learning how to have fun, your learning starts to go to the top right. That's why everybody wants to get into software engineering and coding and stuff like that, because it's so fun to think about it from a gaming perspective. I can build games. I could do this. I could do this. So it's so much funner for you to imagine. Now, the thing that helped me learn so many skills from learning how to code, fun fact, I do fucking know how to code if y'all aren't aware of it. I don't do it anymore, obviously, but I did learn. Learning a wide variety of different things from sales, marketing, learning how to network. Fun fact, I'm not natural at networking. I really had to like put a face mask on and get better at it. Like learning how to do all of these things requires you to have to take a breath and just throw on a smile. Like even doing this, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but just throwing on a smile and saying, you know what, I'm going to suck at this, but that's okay. It's going to take me 6 to 12 months, but I'm going to figure it out, right? So what I'm going to transition over, I'm going to share this tab instead. This is so unhinged what I'm about to show y'all. So this is the most recent fight I had. I think it was earlier this year. Yeah, survival mode is just trying to push through it. So I'm going to give y'all context, right? The guy I'm fighting, all they cared about and focused on was winning this fight, right? We're walking out to this actual fight. And the way that this guy was acting in his team was, we're about to fight to the death. This is going to be the end of the world. Like it's the end of the world for him. And I want you to watch. Right? I'm going to turn the volume down because it's just so loud and obnoxious. How everybody walks out, the seriousness and the demeanor of a lot of people. Fun fact, this guy was supposed to beat me. I was so pissed that I had to walk out first. So if you walk out first, that means that they're expecting the other person to win. And you're going to notice how this ties into everything. So I'm coming out. I'm super playful. I'm just having fun. I'm smiling. I put all my stuff up. I'm being a professional. I'm giving love, hugs to all my guys. By the way, you're going to notice this is so big in the long term. When you're trying to think about how you learn how to code all these things. Figuring out, look at the smile. All of these things are so crucial. So we're going to jump forward a little bit. The guy I'm going against, hoodie on, hardcore, I'm serious. If you're acting this way, like I initiate the plug, like, hey, listen, nothing but love, can't wait to have fun here. This is going to be a good time. Of course, I want to win. I don't want to lose. But when you're so focused on winning and not making a mistake, your brain isn't in a place where it can have fun. That's the problem. Just not skip leg, yeah, Pete. I also don't eat pizza day, so we can go both ways on this. But the big aspect here, it's smiles, it's everything like that, it's appreciation. Yeah, I always do open weight when I fight. Again, seriousness.
Subhounds again. Easton again. Both representing Colorado.
Guy comes out aggressive. He's got like 40 pounds on me.
Oh,
He's a much bigger
pretty
guy.
heavy.
Big boys.
Maybe they clubbing after.
So
too.
a big aspect is learning how to stay calm. So when you're learning how to fight, you're doing anything like that, you have to learn how to stay calm. Same thing to where if you're learning how to code. So in a moment like this, when you're going against an opponent that's much bigger than you, this is, by the way, this is no different than what you're doing right now. When you're learning something new, you're going against a big obstacle, any of these things, you have to be able to slow shit down. Take a breath. Okay, what am I doing? What's my goal here? My goal is to do this. I'm stuck here. Why am I struggling with this? Well, what if I tried this? Okay, well, how am I going to do that? Well, Okay, now I have a game plan, right? No different when you start out with the fight. You see this person. I'm going to have to fight this person. This is going to be scary. So we're not going to show the entire match. Right? This is just fun.
Try to elevate
into a trip.
I end up throwing him down.
But really,
patience.
Yeah, patience.
So actually, that's a great point.
So
I just want to
really
patience.
Yeah,
patience on top. Yeah,
smoothness.
Being patient is a big aspect that allows.
Cool.
Right? They're wanting to force things. Long story short,
another leg attack. Oh, but
one
counter.
thing you don't hear.
I mean, that is the name of the game. I reckon.
It is. Nathan's got an
I want to tell if you
AOP.
could hear it.
Byron's got an outside heel hook. See them both.
So one thing I do is I'm always giving my corner a heads up. This is what's happening. Okay, I want to give you all an update. What was happening in the background here, in all this little middle ground? His corner was screaming, "Break his leg." His corner was screaming, "Break his leg, break his leg." In his mind, he's thinking, "I gotta break his leg, I gotta break his leg, I gotta break his leg." He's freaking out, only thinking that. When you're presented with a problem and you go, "Tyler, you came in at the oddest time, by the way. You came in at the oddest time. Just bear with me here and you're going to understand how all this connects." When you come into a situation and you're approaching it so tunnel visioned and you can't take a step back, that's where we start seeing fundamental problems. Right now, this guy is in a live and just survive mode. He can't think forward.
Clearly looking.
So he's starting to freak out. Long story short, I end up getting progress on him.
Finally,
we get past.
Out.
And the entire time, my focus is thinking. His corner starts pushing him to make a really bad decision. He ends up making some bad decisions. Long story short, it's reaching the end of the fight. And what did I say? When you want to learn how to solve problems, when you want to be into a state of learning, to where, like, before we go any further, I'm gonna jump back to this. When you're just starting, it's so common for you to say, "I'm not digesting anything. I can't remember anything. I'm not retaining. I'm not smart enough for this." Another thing, E is, I don't get it. I don't get it. Right? All these are the inadequacies that you feel. It's the white belt survival mode. You have to learn how to enjoy the process and have fun. Now, we're going to see this take place, right? So first and foremost, Their corner was talking shit this entire time, saying, you're this, you're this, you're this. This is a fun way to kind of drive this home.
Looks like Nathan's just being relentless.
So I
He's
saw the
kinda taking
camera,
over the
Yep.
and I start
match.
smiling and having fun. I knew that this was just about over.
working for that.
I knew that I
Now
was going
he's
to be able to do
smiling
this
on
on
top for
camera.
I
sure.
know. I told you he's been doing that.
He's
He's
savage.
so happy.
He's a savage. The savage.
Oh.
Beautiful work. Another
So-
arm triangle.
Long story short, when you're learning something new, that's the fun part, right? You have the ability to laugh, have a good time. I suck at this, or I'm great at this, or whatever it is. The more you can take some steps back, stop taking it so seriously, enjoy the moment. You're going to be in a better situation to achieve and have that success. So, what you have to do to overcome this entire obstacle, we're going to zoom out some. This is where you are. We're going to draw down where you are going. This is going to be A. This is what's as life as a blue belt when you're learning how to code, learning a new skill. You know how to find solutions. B. You know how to figure things out. C. You know you don't know anything, but you're comfortable asking for help. D. You know this isn't an IQ game. It's a patience and persistent game. The smartest people, oh, my fault, guys. I'm going to share this. My fault. Just switch this over. Thank you for giving me that heads up. Just fix this. Thank you for updating that. Let me know, Patrick and Eliza. Now I'm sharing it. You now have the ability to start looking into what's actually happening, right? You understand, hey, this isn't about IQ. It's about patience and persistence. E. You are a builder. You can build stuff. You can solve problems. It's so cool. That's what all of this is about. You know what? I'm even going to add to this. F. You are self-aware, have a raised consciousness, and are actively fighting irrational behavior. This is what our objective is, guys. You know, when you're learning, when you're first getting started, it's so common to fall into I'm inadequate, I'm not smart enough, I'm this, I'm that. Where you want to go is to this mental shift. You know you can find the solutions. You know where to figure things. You know you have the ability to figure things out. You know that you don't know anything, but you're comfortable asking for help. You know how to go to your mentors and ask for help. You don't isolate yourself, which is one of the Insidious 8. You just can't fall into that. D, you know that this isn't an IQ game. It's a patience and persistence game. You know that you are a builder. You know that you're self-aware. You have a raised consciousness. Your level of consciousness is moving to a point where you're thinking beyond yourself. You're thinking of bigger things. You're getting more strategic. And you're actively fighting that irrational behavior. Only when you move into a state of this are you moving into I'm going to circle all these. Only when you're able to make this does this equal the blue belt stage. And that means you're figuring everything out. You're beyond survival and learning strategy. You're a builder, employable, problem solver. When you reach this stage in Zoom on accident, stage in life, this is when things start getting really interesting. So as we go through listening to the rest of Dr. K, I want us to be mindful of how do we go from here to here? How do we know from where we are to where we're going? And when you have a checklist like this, so you have this framework in your mind, okay, I'm doing XYZ. I need to make sure I'm checking myself because I know where I'm going. I know that where I am today, I'm seeing red. I need to turn this more into fun and enjoying the process. Fun and enjoying the process. How do I do that? I know where I'm going. I know I can find the solutions. It's just going to take time. I know that I have the capacity to figure this out. I know that it's okay that I don't know everything, but I can figure it out with patience and persistence. And I know that I'm a builder, and I want to be focused on not allowing my emotions, my irrational behavior to pull me off guard and send me in the wrong direction. So understanding that, we're going to move back to Dr. K. And we're going to address this aspect because, again, this is a common problem. So many people are finishing universities. They're finishing coding boot camps, right? If I went to Reddit right now, which I'm going to pull this up separately, when you go to Reddit and you go to, I think it's boot camps, coding boot camps. I'm actually going to switch over to this tab, share this tab instead. When you come to this tab, man, it is filled with 56,000 people who are just so miserable. And typically, you see just so much disappointment, right? So for example, this one has 17 comments. They're not going to be a single. I'm a high schooler looking at becoming a software developer. Would you say it's better to go to community college or boot camp instead? Going to a community college, by the way, instead of boot camp is fucking insane. That's such a stupid idea. Whatever you do not roll in a boot camp. I recommend getting an associate's in computer science, said somebody who's not a developer. You could transfer into a bachelor if you want. An associate's for cybersecurity or a program analyst, like this will do nothing for you, right? Like your average curriculum is you won't even learn about any of those things. You're still only covering basic shit. It's just so stupid. Go to community college. Colleges teach you overall critical thinking skills. Boot camps are very limited. Again, it's so stupid. No, if you want to have an option after college, it's always better than going to boot camp. If you're just a boot camp grad with no degree, you're cooked in this market. Go to college. Go to college. Everybody's screaming this. To use the skills based on your knowledge, the experience. Like the fact that nobody is aware of the aspect. 20% of all college graduates. This is a fact. This is from the government. 20% of all college graduates actually get degrees relevant or jobs relevant to their market. That's relevant. Relevant, right? These are the individuals who are giving everybody advice. And it makes no sense whatsoever. Like putting boot camp below a high school is fucking stupid. The way that you need to view this is understanding what this is just a prime example of people not knowing what employers are looking for. I care about experience. I care about problem solving. I care about those things. And it's so common that people come here and you find the people who have not had success are so loud. And it's because they don't have a resource like this podcast. They've decided to disconnect themselves from the reality of everything. When you become irrational, you no longer seek truth. You can't get to where you want to go. We just read this, right? We just read. Rational people are aware of this, and through introspection and efforts are able to some extent, subtract emotions from their thinking and counteract their efforts. Irrational people have no such awareness. They rush into action without carefully considering the ramifications and consequences. In all cases, the degree of awareness represents the difference. Rational people can readily admit their own irrational tendencies and need to be vigilant. On the other hand, irrational people become highly emotional when challenged about their emotional roots for their decisions. They're incapable of introspection and learning. Their mistakes make them increasingly defensive. This is nothing but defensive behavior. You can't help somebody if they're purely irrational. And that's my goal with this show. Let's work together to seek truth, to find rational behavior, to continually improve as humans, as people, to build lives where our kids can come over and we can take care of them, that we can take care of our parents, all of these things. But we can't do that if we become the individuals who just run to Reddit because all of our failure is just so shameful to admit and we can't address it. This is actually really sad. This is really, really disappointing. I'll go to a video later from a podcast called the All In Podcast where they address this. And I think it's going to be so powerful for all of you, right? And I'm gonna go to the comments real quickly. I'm slowly destroying my expectations. The Clever Ace, can you clarify that? What you mean by that, right? They're stuck in tutorial hell. They can't think about what copy or step by YouTube. Exactly. My BA was decision I wish I could redo. Tyler, same. Exactly. Make it fun. I got a degree in criminal justice with the last phrase. Degrees ago, opportunities. I'm excited for DevSlopes. Man, Patrick, we got you. We're gonna take care of you every step of the way. It's a journey, but you gotta stick into it. Well, again, everybody, this is why we'll stick to the video, but this is why we run hackathons. I'll actually just real briefly. This is why we run hackathons. The job market is tough. The job market is tough for those that have no background. It's tough for those that have no understanding of the professional expectations in the world. So how do you make a difference? Well, first things first, there's hacks we can do. We run the hackathons where we've given out tens of thousands of dollars. You go win a hackathon or even place the top 3. You get some Upwork experience. When you get some Upwork experience, you can leverage that experience to go get jobs, freelance projects, everything along those lines. There's over 33 million small businesses in the world. You're telling me that you can't get a job at any of them? That's not true. That's why you're going to hear me talk about business a lot, because I want to bring that audience here so I can connect the two of you. They're so helpful. You both of you need to connect like right now. So the objective here, above all else, is to show you that the reality that's been painted is not true. Everything everybody said to you is just not true. The reality is that if you're able to get a little bit of experience, be able to verify that through a third party, i.e. something like Upwork, you then have the ability to go out and start getting bigger and bigger and bigger projects. It's kind of like if you went to a bank and said, hey, I need money for an investment. They're going to first ask, how long have you been banking with us? Do you have a history of keeping a lot of money in your bank account? Do you have a good credit score? Okay, he seems like somebody that we can give a $5,000 loan to. If you pay that loan back, you build a good history with that banker is going to be more willing to give you more money over time. People seem to think that the job process is just a linear 1, 2, 3 jump. It's not, right? It's an unlinear curve where you start off really small. You get all these small little projects, then boom, you get the job. But from 0 to 2 years, it seems as if you're this loser who's making no progress because you're focused on money. You want to put that to the side. The entire aspect of earn while you learn is based around earn income, but also earn experience. How do you earn that experience? You learn how to sell yourself. You learn how to market yourself to businesses, to everybody. And then after you get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 freelance projects, you could jump in because employers are like, other people have worked with him. Other people have taken risks with this person. We can trust him, right? When we spoke with him, he was able to talk about these experiences solving this problem and that problem, how they wanted this done, but that's not actually what they wanted done. After you ask a handful of questions, they really wanted this done over here, but you then realize they don't have an inventory management system. So you figured out, I didn't know how to do that, but I was able to go to Google and figure out how to get them an inventory management system. But then on top of that, they didn't have a landing page. Then they had no way to get customer service feedback. And then you start putting all these things together because you're learning how to be a professional. That's why I cover all the costs for Upwork Connects for you guys. Speak to Rakeem about that, Dustin about that if you want feedback. That's why we run the hackathons. so that we can give you an unfair advantage to get projects on your belt so that your Upwork profile shows that you have money in it, it's so much better. So before we go back to this video, I'm gonna check the chat real fast. Zinc Midas says, I've always wanted to freelance and I'm learning more about it here than anywhere else. Yeah, of course you are, man, right? The Clever Ace. I have all these wants in terms of structure, but that is up to me to create with the cadence of action and not relying on outside help, just to create a pattern that produces results. Papados. Make everything unique and interesting. It's a good way to enjoy a professional coder for me anyways. I love that. The Clever Ace. If I want it, it's up to me. Make it, of course. Then Tyler said, anything for fun than military duty. It went through a longer Navy boot camp. So I got hurt and there's 20 weeks and anyway it's stressful. Yeah, man, that's brutal. That's absolutely brutal. So let's go ahead and let's go back to our main point over here, right? Let's go back to why you're not getting the job. Dr. K's feedback.
So it can be very, very, very scary for people to like be in the situation where they feel like they're not getting adequately prepared. The tricky thing here is that there are a couple of different pieces to this puzzle that we have to consider in order to understand how to navigate towards like becoming employable. The first is, it's kind of weird, but where is your idea of how employable you are, right? So the first question you've got to ask yourself.
So essentially he's asking, hey, how do you distinguish what's employable and what's not employable, right? Like that's a hard thing to have to get checked on. Like that's not too fun to be transparent. That's hard to have to actually look in the mirror and say, oh, I'm actually not that great. That's a little brutal to be transparent.
Is how qualified are you to know how employable you are? So this person was kind of saying, I have a crappy portfolio. I can envision the piece of crap portfolio that I'm putting together. Whereas you have to really stop for a second and think a little bit about like, do you know what people who are looking for entry level, graphic design artists are looking for? Right? So you're going to get your first job out of college. Like, what are they looking for? What are the requirements? How much of what you actually do in the workplace do you even learn in college? Right? So let's kind of start there for a second.
So this is a great point. We say that we're qualified, we're ready to get a job, but are we qualified to know if we are employable, that we know what an employer wants, that we actually know what we're talking about? That's brutal. That's a fucking brutal.
Because the truth is that chances are you're actually going to be totally fine. And we'll get to that in a second. But like most people, who are hiring for the first time understand that you're coming right out of college. Most people also understand in the workplace that when you hire someone out of college, what really college is for is, or uni is for, is developing a foundation upon which you build your skills. So just as an example, like, in medical school is intense, right? So medical school is like 4 years. And there's a lot to learn in medical school. You're studying a ton. And you probably learn I probably learned like 5 to 10% of what I use as a psychiatrist in medical school. In the next 4 years during residency, you learn like 95% of psychiatry. So it's kind of bizarre. But that's true for a lot of other professions too. And graphic design, I think, is generally speaking, in a sense, no different. Is that people know that, if you're out of college, you're out of college. You're not going to be expected to be perfect. So then the question kind of comes in, like, then why does this person feel this way, right? Where are these thoughts coming from? Where's the pessimism coming from? And let's kind of take a second look at the post and kind of highlight a few things. Okay? So jokes of unemployment right at the start.
Yep.
If things are looking pessimistic, so this seems kind of optimistic, right? Doesn't teach us how to design. They give us projects, but they don't really teach me anything. I don't know what to do. They feel like they're learning the basics. They kind of spent some time depressed at home.
This is starting to sound a lot like the white
I'm
belt stage.
already picturing the crappy state of my portfolio as I try to apply to jobs. No one cares, right? Like, I'm already seeing this now as...
Does everybody remember in the Sinister 8, one of the things we talked about is that aspect of isolation? And one of the things that isolation is, people don't care about me, or people just don't get me. People don't get me. So I'm just going to say people don't get me, so I don't even have to put myself out there. And once you start down that route of isolation, people don't get me, I'm not special, all these things, you're now so distanced from everybody because you distanced yourself, not because they did. They didn't. No one's telling you you suck. You internally are saying it. If you're internally saying, I don't get it, they don't get me, but I'm not going to talk to them to verify that. I'm just going to say they don't get me because I have this uniquely bad experience and I am who I am and I'm just, like, life is just hard. You're not helping yourself. And how are you supposed to make progress if you're so hard on yourself that way? So hard.
Is I struggle at my work internship, and honestly, I feel horrible. So this is kind of tricky. But, and this is something I've seen a lot during the pandemic, like I said. So I'm going to point out to y'all a little bit about what's going on in the mind and how this person is coming to conclusions. So if you're someone that thinks that you're not prepared for the job market, you have to remember that your mind is making that conclusion, right? But how qualified is your mind and what is your mind influenced by? Let's take a look. So if you're a college student who feels unprepared, let's start to understand a couple things. One is, how qualified are you? To know your employability.
Zeke, you hit it on the head.
Second thing is, where does your mind get the idea that you're unemployable?
Great to have you, Tyler.
Okay. So first thing is that you're not really very qualified. Because, like, how many people have you interviewed for design positions? Do you know what companies look for when they're hiring? Are you part of HR? Have you like, you don't know, right? Like, I know it's kind of weird, but like, you have no idea what people are looking for. And actually, this person seems quite attractive in terms of a lot of the things that they're doing. So this is kind of weird, but like, the short answer is, like, you're not an expert in like hiring graphic designers. You have no idea what people are looking for. So we're not saying that you aren't. Maybe you should be.
What a great point. When we take that idea, how qualified are you for employment? In addition, let's go back over to this tab real fast. Everybody's giving their 10 cents on this. How qualified are these individuals to know what employability looks like? How qualified are they to know where you need to be? When you ask a bunch of people what you need to be when they've never been there, they've never been in the decisions of they've never been in the shoes of the decision maker, all of these things, how do you know who you're supposed to trust? A little problematic. So, for example, this Playful Search 6256, does he have a job in software engineering for 5 to 10 years? Yeah, like, it's easy to give the opinions. You're not the person in the arena. And you know what the funny part is? Look at all the thumbs ups, right? Nobody is saying, oh, I'm giving this advice because of this. Nobody's saying that. They're all just giving opinions. It's so easy. And I'll give you all a little bit of advice that I've always had. It had so much. I have not seen a community college actually teach software development. They may teach some code like Python. So, for example, the one person that added a little bit of rationality to this, he gets 2 downvotes. The only person, he didn't even go against this. He's like, hey, I haven't seen anybody do this. And what happens? Everybody downvote. This guy's an idiot. How are you supposed to help anybody when these are the people that are in your ear when you first get started? Your environment is everything. Building healthy, meaningful relationships is everything. And our goal is not to say boot camps are the best solution. It's not that. The goal is, how do we provide you with a more honest look into how you get to where you want to go? And the way you get there is not by listening to the naysayers, the individuals who didn't make it. You want to go straight to the source. What do employers say? When Beanie brings on tons of individuals that she interviews, and they say, hey, what do you look like? She's bringing on the recruiters who are actually telling you what they're looking for, and people aren't going. They're not listening. How do you help somebody when they're just being irrational? Irrationality is the downfall of all people, especially those that are getting started. So if you don't have control over yourself, understand you cannot make that transition.
Pessimistic, I don't know. But let's just start by sort of understanding, if you're a college student, you have no idea what people who are like actually hiring are looking for and the skill set that matters to them and things like that. You just don't know. Right? So you're just, first thing is, how qualified are you? The answer is not very. So if you're not very qualified, why are you freaking out? Right? And it turns out there's a really good reason for this. So in college, especially like pre-pandemic, so in college, what a big part of college is developing confidence. And what I've seen more and more often is that like this confidence kind of comes from things like grades. It comes from being, a junior or senior and working, like being a TA for freshmen, for example. Right? So like it comes from grades, comes from junior, senior, comes from, generally speaking, like learning more advanced things over time. It also comes from feedback from peers and professors. So this is really important, right? Because a lot of confidence isn't actually learning the on-the-job stuff. It's like learning things like work ethic, deadlines. This is really what college is about.
This is powerful. So as somebody coming through the program and I have direct experience with this. I want to talk about when I've looked at hiring individuals, when I've looked at hiring a lot of people who came in, who go to universities. I've hired so many people who have either gone to universities, that didn't go to universities. It's really been across the board. What I can tell you with confidence, I don't give a fuck about the university, unless it's Harvard. Like unless it's a high-class university, I really don't care. What I will say, I do know if somebody went to college, they've done a couple things. They most likely are good at socializing. Number two, they have the ability to hit deadlines. He really hit this perfectly on the head. That's the biggest obstacle I see with anybody who goes to college, or that's the biggest benefit. You've proven that you have the ability to do things. You have the ability to do things that are hard and difficult. So you need to be thinking to yourself, man, okay, I'm going against people who have a benefit. Like their selling point is that they're when people look at them, the college degree says work ethic, can hit deadlines. That's what the employer immediately notes. This person's relatively responsible. How do I paint that picture on my resume so I pass that initial bullshit test? Because employers look at resumes like, well, is this person generally trustworthy? Like what on the resume tells me that you have work ethic and you have the ability to hit deadlines and do things that you don't want to do? What on your resume tells you that? And if there's nothing on it, what we go back to, how do we get freelance work to show that? So this is the classical example of traditional education versus experience. You're going to graduate with both the same problems. Both scenarios, you're going to graduate, and one is going to say he has formal experience. He doesn't have any experience whatsoever, but he does know how to hit deadlines, have a good work ethic. On the second hand, right, this person, they developed experience, they developed a work ethic, and they're able to hit deadlines because they did freelance work. And on top of that, they have some freelance projects that they can show us on actually stuff that they completed. They worked with real clients. They had to problem solve in real time. So now I see why it's so important for somebody to potentially have some freelance experience. So what's really powerful, 6 months of freelance experience will completely destroy any degree that you get. Any bachelor's degree that you have will not compare against 6 months of freelance experience, meaning you consistently for 6 months got freelance projects. If you will dedicate 6 months to going out and getting freelance projects, no code solutions, any of them, to prove that you have the ability to go out and get stuff done, you're set. And yeah, college is great for learning how to learn, but so is a boot camp, so is being out in the actual freelance world. Because when you freelance, you're going to be getting a bunch of projects that you don't know how to solve things. You have to figure it out. Employers want to know, do you have the ability to find solutions when I'm not giving you solutions, right? You face a problem, you have a bunch of obstacles, you have to figure it out on your own. Do you have the capacity to do that? And if you don't, you're going to be in a lot of bad shoes. But if you can learn to solve that, you're really set up. Oh, I got to share the screen. Sorry. Let me do this real fast. Turn off the screen share. Boom.
Pandemic, during online schooling,
most of you, I love the idea of the freelancing full time. Eric, most people won't make enough money to do it full time. And most people really aren't built to full time freelance. Just going to give a heads up. But it's great to do on top of your job.
so as more programs move to online, these kinds of confidence developing things get decreased. Because you're not interacting with freshmen as much. You're not quite a TA. Even if you are a TA, if it's online, you don't really form relationships with people. It's kind of like you're just kind of reviewing work and stuff like that. So what's happening is that as our college situation and our pandemic situation changes, I'm noticing a global decrease in the amount of confidence that people have coming out of college. Okay? And then this is creating further problems. So once you lack confidence.
So what he's saying is people are graduating from college. They're showing more lacking of confidence because they traditionally don't have the experience that everybody else has. So that says if you go to like an online university or you did online classes, which a lot of people are doing, employers are going to start looking at those as even less of a benefit. So you spent $40,000, not even factoring in the interest. Most college degrees have to factor in interest, and paying them off for about 20 to 40 years will cost well into the $150,000 to $250,000 range. And all it shows is you have a work ethic and can hit a deadline. Yeah, great job. You should definitely spend money on that. The fuck are we talking about?
Now we're answering this question a little bit better. So once we determine that we lack confidence, then what happens is our mind concludes we are screwed.
Wow.
Now, is this person applying?
How many of you are thinking right now, that mentality, lack of confidence, you're literally saying to yourself, I'm screwed. You're facing the beginning of the program. You're in that white belt mode. You're thinking, I'm screwed, I'm screwed, I'm screwed. I don't know if I'll be able to do this. Let me know in the chat. I want us to continue talking about this with time.
Applied for a job? No. Do they know what employers are looking for? No. And yet their mind still comes to the conclusion that they're screwed. But where does that conclusion stem from? It stems from a lack of confidence. I'm not blaming this person for doing that. That's what happens to everyone, right? So unless we're given confidence through some of these reinforcing measures, unless one of your professors, because I think this is the problem they face, is like their professors are too mentally checked out. They're not saying, hey, you're doing a really great job. What I'm not hearing from this person at all is anywhere in here someone telling them, hey, you're doing a good job. You're doing great. You're managing the workload. I know it's a lot. We're not seeing any positive reinforcement. And when there's an absence of positive reinforcement in our college experience or in any other part of life, that leads to a lack of confidence. It's not a personal failing on this person's part. It's like it's not their job to be naturally confident. Confidence comes from the reinforcement of people who are more experienced than you are. And in the absence of that, they're going to naturally end up with a lack of confidence.
That's one of my goals here. I want to be able to be the mentor that's like, hey, Eric, show me the project you did. Man, you're getting better. That's fucking sick. And by the way, because of we're using Riverside for all this streaming, I can invite a lot of y'all on. In fact, if any of y'all want to come on and chat for just a little bit, I could send you a link to come on from Riverside and we could chat. So just let me know. If anybody wants to come on, let me know. And I'll just DM you the link in Discord and you can come join the call with me. and we could just game plan. We could talk about what we're going through, everything along those lines. Just let me know. Just drop in the YouTube chat. Then I'll send a message to you and we can chat about everything.
Then they're going to conclude that they're screwed. This in turn is going to activate the ahamkar.
What?
Right? So remember, ahamkara, ahamkara, the Sanskrit word for ego, is a defensive mechanism that arises to protect you when you are feeling bad.
Tell me that isn't ego. Actually, I'm going to let him finish.
So when we lack confidence, the ahamkar activates. Ahamkar to the rescue. And then the ahamkar, unfortunately, does a couple things that can be weird. One is it makes comparisons.
So you're telling me ego, I'm starting to lack confidence. My ego has to kind of validate my failure. And it starts comparing things and putting the responsibility off me onto other people. I joined a boot camp. I joined a program. Graduated or dropped out. Didn't do well. I feel like a failure. I feel like an idiot, but it's not my fault. It's everything else. So I start going to everybody in the world saying, they did this, you need to do this. This was all just a scam. I didn't fail. I was scammed out of my money. I'm not the failure. They're frauds. They took my money. They didn't help me. Even though I didn't have the ability to apply to the jobs, I wasn't willing to network. I wasn't willing to do this. None of that's the problem. The problem was that they're frauds and they took my money. Those are the people that you're up against. We say it's a competitive job market, but in this competitive job market, those are your competition. I understand that everybody here is at the very beginning of their career, but all of these guys are still applying to jobs that will compete with you. That's good news. If anything, that should make you feel so fucking good. Because we're going to solve this. We're going to solve this problem. You're here on this show, Mastering Obsession. Mastering Obsession is dedicated. We have an obsession to solving this, to getting you the job you want, to getting the career you want. We can solve this with time. We can help solve the ego. Ego is we have a lot of stuff from Ryan Holiday we're going to cover with time. But man, how big is this? How big is it to know this? This is helpful.
Right? So how does this person know that their portfolio is going to look like trash? It's because they've looked at other portfolios. Right? So even if you look at this, how does this person, okay, so that's the thing. So like it's always a balance act between learning the basics of what you're in uni and doing assignments. I don't know what to do anyway. There's so many things I don't know. Right? So they're aware that there are a lot of things that they don't know yet. They're aware of the growth that they need to have. That's actually really healthy. We'll see that in a second. But all they're focusing on, they're not focusing on the things that they do know and all the things that they've learned. They're not focusing on the fact that they've successfully completed assignments. What the ahamkar is going to do when we lack confidence and we have the ahamkar, this is going to result in cognitive distortions.
So when your ego is checked, we have cognitive distortions. Let's see what that means. Everybody, please leave notes on this. This is so important. I would love to hear the takeaways.
These cognitive distortions are all going to be negative in nature. So you're going to focus on all the things that you don't know because you're not even going to appreciate. You're so buried with all your workload that you're actually doing that you don't even appreciate how much you've learned because all you felt week after week, month after month after month is that you're like alone in the ocean, stranded by yourself with no sense of feedback, right? You're trying to navigate through fog and you can't see anything. So of course you're going to feel lost because you're not getting any feedback from anyone. This, in turn, is going to result in I'm unemployable. Because you're going to look at all the other people. You're going to go look at like design portfolios of professionals who have websites, and you're going to compare your crappy design portfolio to theirs. And then you're going to conclude, oh, wow, look at how awesome that person is. Forget the fact that they have like 8 years of experience. You're going to conclude I'm unemployable because this is my competition. Now, this is where things get really tricky, because once you start looking for a job with this attitude, what do you think this attitude is going to do in terms of shaping the job that you get? Here's what's going to happen. Okay, first thing that's going to happen is you're going to avoid the best jobs. Okay, you're going to avoid the best jobs for sure, because there's no way that this person would hire you, right? Because you're unemployable. So the first thing that you're going to do is knock out the 50% of jobs that are awesome, or like not awesome, that are good, right? So the top 50%. So let's say here's all the jobs that you can get. This is the perfect job. This is the shittiest job that you can get. The first thing that you're going to do is X out this. So now all that's left is the bottom half. Next thing that's going to happen is, like, when you go in interview places, because of your lack of like confidence in yourself, you're going to naturally attract toxic workplaces. I know it's kind of weird, but this is almost the situation, kind of like when you have been abused growing up, you look for partners that will continue to abuse you because it's like, it feels right, right? Even if it's not good for you, it feels right. So when you go to an interview and someone treats you with a little bit of disrespect, or they're like, yeah, I don't know if you actually have what it takes, but we'll give you a chance. That's actually going to align with your internal sense of self. So you'll be like, oh, like these people like know what to expect from me, so let me work there. So over time, what you're going to do is you're also going to shoot yourself in the foot in terms of negotiations. And because you think so little of yourself, you lack that confidence, right? And so like what you're going to end, this is what gets really tricky. So when I say toxic workplace, why do I say toxic? Because someone with more confidence would be able to walk away from like mistreatment during the hiring process, right? Someone with more confidence who recognizes the value they bring to the table. If a boss is like, are you willing to work nights and weekends and not get paid for it? Are you willing to get me coffee? And like someone with confidence is going to be like, no. Whereas like you, if you're worried, right? So look at how much they're already willing to compromise against themselves to make it work, right? Self-compromise. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. You're going to compromise, right? It's tricky. Then what's going to happen? This is the worst thing. They're going to get a job.
This is so crucial.
It's going to be toxic. They're going to burn out. And then what is this going to do? Reinforce their original beliefs. I knew it. I knew I was unemployable.
Yep.
I knew I was unemployable.
Yep.
Now you're burnt out. Now you can't even work, right? We're back to the summer. Where is this? They gave us, why don't you teach yourself? It's a balancing act. Yeah. Like I barely had time for the workload I was given. Like burning out, can't learn stuff during the summer. The summer is supposed to be a break, right? It's not supposed to be where you learn. You knew it. I told you so. Your mind is like, hey, your humcar was like, I warned you about this, buddy. I tried to protect you by telling you that you shouldn't expect to get a job. Look at you, dumbass. Thought you could get a job. Becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right?
So we're going to wrap this on this specific video. I have a different one I want to share with you all in just a moment. But first, I want to give the summary from this. And please, I need to know from y'all, does this resonate? This is the notes that I specifically got with this. When you fail and your confidence fails, then your ego steps in to validate you. It helps compare all these options and it creates cognitive distortions that make it seem impossible for you to do anything. You start comparing yourself against people who have much different backgrounds. Then it creates avoidant behaviors that make you think, you know what, what's the point of even doing this if I can't do this because XYZ can't even do this? What's the point of this? You know, I could always do this tomorrow. And that empowers, at the end of the day, the Insidious 8. It empowers the exact thing that will continue to fuel your failure on a consistent basis. Right? How do you supposed to make it out? Now, what I want to do real quickly, let's now turn to some light. Let's draw some light on this. We're going to transition over, actually. I'm checking the chat for all the 10 cents here. There's a podcast that I listen to all the time. It's called the All In Podcast. And this is what I want to be the kicking point, the start off point. We will reference this podcast all the time, all the time. And one of the reasons why I love this podcast is it's a glimpse, it's a breath of fresh air for you when you're going through this process. You're trying to figure out, who do I listen to? Who is the person that's going to help you? You do not want to listen to the individuals who have no qualifications to tell you what employment should look like. You want to go to the sources, the podcasts, the blogs, the books, everything, where the actual individuals are that are hiring people. So there's 4 individuals on this podcast that we're about to show you. Right? All of them incredibly successful people in tech. All of them have active companies. And we're going to listen to them give some feedback on this.
Boom, the tool belt generation is what Gen Z is being referred to as. A report in the Wall Street Journal reports, hey, tech jobs have dried up. We're all seeing that. And according to Indeed, developer jobs down more than 30% since February of 2020.
Pay very close attention to
pre-COVID,
this.
of course. If you look at layoffs.fyi, you'll see all the tech jobs that have been eliminated since 2022, over 500,000 of them. Bunch of things at play here. And the Wall Street Journal notes that entry-level tech workers are getting hit the hardest, especially all these recent college graduates.
And of course they are,
and
especially
if you
with
look
everything
at
we're listening to.
Historical college enrollment, let's pull up that chart, Nick. You can see here undergraduate, graduate, and total with the red line. We peaked at 21 million people in either graduate school or undergraduate in 2010, and that's come down to 8.6 million. At the same time, obviously in the last 12 years, you've had the population has grown. So this is even, if it was a percentage basis, would be even more dramatic. So what's behind this? A poll of 1,000 teens this summer found that about half believe a high school degree, trade program, or 2-year degree best meets their career needs, and 56% said real-world on-the-job experience is more valuable than obtaining a college degree, something you've talked about with your own personal experience, Chamath, at Waterloo, doing apprenticeships, essentially. Your thoughts on Generation Tool Belt?
Such a positive trend. I mean, there's so many reasons why this is good. I'll just list a handful that come to the top of my mind. The first, and probably the most important, is that it breaks this stranglehold that the university education system has on America's kids. We have tricked millions and millions of people into getting trillions of dollars in debt on this idea that you're learning something in university that's somehow going to give you economic stability and ideally freedom. And it has turned out for so many people to not be true. It's just so absurd and unfair that has happened. So if you can go and get a trade degree and live a economically productive life where you can get married and have kids and take care of your family and do all the things you want to do, that's going to put an enormous amount of pressure on higher ed. Why does it charge so much? What does it give in return? That's one thought. The second thought, which is much more narrow, Peter Thiel has that famous saying where if you have to put the word science behind it, it's not really a thing. And what we are going to find out is that was true for a whole bunch of things where people went to school, like political science and
social science. Yeah.
Social science. But I always thought that computer science would be immune. But I think he's going to be right about that too, because you can spend $200,000 or $300,000 getting in debt to get a computer science degree, but you're probably better off learning JavaScript and learning these tools in some kind of a boot camp for far, far less and graduating in a position to make money right away. So those are just two ideas. I think that it allows us to be a better functioning society. So I
want to give some context before they go into more details. The reason why we talk about confidence in all of these aspects, right? The confidence aspect that I'm speaking of is the vast majority of people at the beginning of this call said that they agreed with the white belt mentality. They feel like they're not smart enough to do all of this, not necessarily getting a job, but they're struggling with the entire process of learning as a whole. So what we started off this entire podcast, or this entire episode, was talking about the importance of not being irrational. We then went down a rabbit hole of learning about what irrational behavior looks like, how people lack confidence just in general. And then now we're moving to this aspect of practical. Where's the truth? For context, all four of these guys are incredibly successful investors. They've all worked at high-level companies. Chamath, the individual speaking right now, is one of the most successful executives at Facebook when it was initially founded, worked with Zuckerberg directly for a very long time. He's a partial owner of the Golden State Warriors. Incredibly successful individuals. And what you're going to start hearing is their focus from moving away from formal education to skills-based work. So many people are graduating without the tool belt that they need. That's why they call it the tool belt generation. We need tactical tool belt individuals who can solve problems. The problem is a lot of people who are applying to jobs and everything so far, they don't have the practical skills employers are looking for. They don't have self-control. They can't hit deadlines. So they tried to go down the tool belt path, but they lack what the university kids have in terms of the ability to hit deadlines, to be professional, to understand how to communicate. They lack in all of those areas. So you have to understand, how do I make up for that? That's why we introduced freelance work. That's why so many people got laid off that we don't talk about. And they're going to address that in just a moment.
really supportive of this trend.
Sachs, your thoughts on this generation tool belt we're reading about, and the sort of combination with static team size that we're seeing in technology, companies keeping the number of employees the same or trending down while they grow 30% year over year.
Oh my God, I'm like so sick of this topic of job loss or job disruption. I got in so much trouble last week. You asked a question about whether the upper middle class is going to suffer because they're all going to be put out of work by AI. And I just kind of brushed it off, not because I'm advocating for that, but just because I don't think it's going to happen. This whole thing about job loss is so overdone. There's going to be a lot of job disruption. But in the case of coders, just as an example, I think we can say that coders, depending on who you talk to, are 10, 20, 30% more productive as a result of these coding assistant tools. But we still need coders. You can't automate 100% of it. And the world needs so many of them. The need for software is unlimited. We can't hire enough of them at Glue. By the way, shout out if you're a coder who is afraid of not being able to get a job, apply for one at Glue. Believe me, we're hiring. I just think that this is so overdone. There's going to be a lot of disruption in the knowledge worker space. Like we talked about, the workflow at call centers and just service factories, there's going to be a lot of change. But at the end of the day, I think there's going to be plenty of work for humans to do. And some of the work will be more in the blue collar space. And I agree with Chamath that this is a good thing. I think there's been perhaps an overemphasis on the idea that the only way to get ahead in life is to get like a fancy degree from one of these universities. And we've seen that many of the universities, they're just not that great. They're overpriced. You end up graduating with a mountain of debt, and you get a degree that is, maybe even far worse than computer science. That's just completely worthless. So if people learn more vocational skills, if they skip college because they have a proclivity to do something that doesn't need that degree, I think that's a good thing, and that's healthy for the economy.
Friedberg, is this like just the pendulum swung too much and education got too expensive, spending $200K to make $50,000 a year, distinctly different than our childhoods, or our adolescence, when we were able to go to college for $10K a year, $20K a year, graduate with some low tens of thousands in debt if you did take debt, and then your entry level job was 50, 60, 70K coming out of college. What are your thoughts here? Is this a value issue with college?
Well, yeah, I think the market's definitely correcting itself. I think for years, as Chamath said, there was kind of this belief that if you went to college, regardless of the college, there was this outcome where you would make enough money to justify the debt you're taking on. And I think folks have woken up to the fact that that's not reality. Again, if there was a free market, remember, most people go to college with student loans, and all student loans are funded by the federal government. So the cost of education has ballooned, and the underwriting criteria necessary for this free market to work has been completely destroyed because of the federal spending in the student loan program. There's no discrimination between one school or another. You could go to Trump University or you could go to Harvard. It doesn't matter. You still get a student loan, even if at the end of the process, you don't have a degree that's valuable. And so I think folks are now waking up to this fact, and the market is correcting itself, which is good. I'll also say that I think that there's this premium with generally mass production and industrialization of the human touch. And what I mean is, if you think about, hey, you could go to the store and buy a bunch of cheap food off of the store shelves. You could buy a bunch of Hershey's chocolate bars, or you can go to a Swiss chocolatier in downtown San Francisco, pay $20 for a box of handmade chocolates. You'll pay that premium for that better product. Same with clothes. There's this big trend in kind of handmade clothes and high-end luxury goods.
Bespoke, artisanal is the
Artisanal,
words.
handmade. And similarly, I think that there's a premium in human service, in the partnership with a human. It's not just about blue-collar jobs. It's about having a waiter talk to you and serve you if you go to a restaurant, instead of having a machine spit out the food to you. There's an experience associated with that you'll pay a premium for. There's hundreds and hundreds of microbreweries in the United States that in aggregate outsell Budweiser and Miller and even Modelo today. And that's because they're handcrafted by local people, and there's an artisan craftsmanship. So while technology and AI are going to completely reduce the cost of a lot of things and increase the production and productivity of those things, one of the complementary consequences of that is that there will be an emerging premium for human service. And I think that there will be an absolute burgeoning and blossoming in the salaries and the availability and demand for human service in a lot of walks of life. Certainly, there's all the work at home, the electricians. And
I want to pull this together real quickly for everybody. Before we go any further, does everybody remember when we started this off, they talked about data on amount of people being laid off in software, how it's this, all this bad data they initially started off with. But then we also heard AI is helping software engineers become, in their words, 10 to 30% more effective. These are individuals with tech companies that are having a lot of success right now. I want to make sure quote is off. Now, the reason why this matters in particular is because the individuals that were laid off, this is after speaking with a lot of people in the field, the individuals that were laid off were because these were individuals that were hired in bulk, weren't trained, but in addition, were not solving problems. They were just burdens on the field. They were not contributing to the company. So Elon is a great example at Twitter. They realized that they could fire almost all of their staff and it had no impact on the company. Most people say, oh, he fired everybody, he's a bad person, tech is a terrible industry to get in. But we stop using our critical thinking skills. We become irrational. We don't ask more. Well, why did he fire everybody? Just for corporate greed and profit? People are forgetting. Twitter has been on a downhill spin forever. They've been losing millions upon millions of dollars per day to keep the company alive. If it's not making money, it can't survive. Like, it has investors it has to give money back to, people that bought shares, all these things. So they don't ask the next question. Why did he lay off all those people? Well, he realized that if I fire all of these people, they're not productive. They're producing nothing of value to the company. There's endless examples about when he would go to people at Twitter and say, hey, what do you do here? And they're like, well, I don't have a data set project. He's like, you're fired. Get the fuck out of here. What are you doing? Like, this is black and white. It's his job to make sure that they're a profitable company that can continue to produce big benefits. But if you have people that are there who don't know how to code and were hired because their friend was a manager or this, that, right? Or because they looked good, you're not going to keep them. In essence, what got them fired and why they had such massive layoffs, management was not good. They didn't know how to onboard people. People were coming on board and they weren't capable of actually producing to the team, building features, adding on to the internal tools, any of those things. So they had to fire all of them. And what they're realizing with AI, with better management, they could hire on people, pay them more, and better take care of them. There's more support for individuals who are entry level. You can be better taken care of, all these aspects. Now tell me that doesn't make sense. The reason everybody was laid off, not because they're firing everybody. It's because the individuals who weren't carrying their weight were fired. That's the truth of the matter. It's not fun, but it's just the truth of the matter. And those are the individuals taking to with their loud mics and screaming to the world, this is what's wrong with everything. Yeah, exactly. If they fired 80% of the staff and nothing's changed, who's at fault? Elon or the people that were fired? Use your critical thinking skills. Be rational. Does that make sense? If the company was losing endless amounts of money and all we hear in the media is about how terrible Elon is and how he's running Twitter in a terrible way, but he was able to fire almost all the staff and nothing changed, especially from a user standpoint. What changed for you if you use Twitter? Yeah, even if it struggled at first, why does it matter if nothing meaningful of change happened? I think you did a good job. So understanding that, how can you, as somebody who wants to get a job, impact that? Oh, sorry, I forgot to click play here. Let me click screen share. Sorry, I didn't share this.
Fitness classes, food.
I need to confirm that I'm using the right deal. Give me a second. Screen tab, boom.
Personal service around tutoring and learning and developing oneself. There's going to be an incredible blossoming, I think, in human service jobs, and they don't need to have a degree in poli-sci to be performed. I think that there will be a lot of people that will be very happy in that world.
How do you see the differentiation the person makes, Freeberg, in doing that job versus the agent or the AI or whatever?
Well, these are in-person human jobs. So if I want to do a fitness class, do I want to stare at the tonal? Or
no, this is what I'm asking you. Yeah, like what?
Yeah, and I think that there's an aspect of look, it's like your Laura Piana. Like you talk about the story of Laura Piana. Where is the vicuña coming from? How's it made? Who's involved in it? Like, yes, look, you're
oh my God, look at that. Here he goes.
Yeah,
Don't stop, right? Freeberg.
I could give you truffle flavoring out of a can, but you love the white truffles. You want to go to Italy. You want the storytelling. There's an aspect of it, right? Like, yeah.
Yes.
And I think that there's an aspect of humanity that we pay a premium, that we do and will. Look, Etsy crushes. I don't know how much stuff you guys buy on Etsy. I love buying from Etsy. I love finding handmade stuff on Etsy.
I buy my underwear
for decorating this. No, you don't. Do you really?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Handcrafted.
So I think, yeah, handmade. So I think that there's an aspect of this that in a lot of walks of life.
I mean, I have so many jokes right now.
Yeah,
They're just queuing up.
Okay, so what we're going to do here, we're going to wrap up for today. Tomorrow we're not going to have an episode. Wednesday we'll have an episode. I'm finishing up the backside of my forearm for the tattoo. I'm getting my bicep done on Wednesday. So I will be here in pain on Thursday. I'll make sure that this camera situation is worked out by then. Pinky promise. What I want to keep in mind between now and then, everybody, our goal is to work for a higher level of rationality, to think more problem solving, to be more mindful of everything across the board, to understand how to think from an employer's POV, all those aspects. If we can't do that, no one's going to hire you. So this series, everything about this, is going to be the future of setting you up on how to be a successful software engineer, a successful employee who can be strategic and tactical from an employment standpoint, who understands what you need from a hiring manager, what you need from good management, how to be onboarded, all of those things we will continue to talk about. The value of getting freelance work versus getting a formal education, and how 3 to 6 months of freelancing will completely invalidate a college degree, because not only do you show that you have the work ethic and you have the ability to hit deadlines and you have discipline, but also you have experience, tactical, professional experience that you can show employers. These are all wildly valuable things. So one thing I really want to emphasize is Eric, Patrick, Dave, all of you, John, Ryan, Jason, Eliza, Papados, all of you, thank you so much for joining the call. This call is nothing if it wasn't for the students that are here and we're trying to help. So please continue to let me know the questions you have. One big ask I have, go into Discord. Let me see your notes, your takeaways from today's call. If you do that, we'll be able to have some really big takeaways. Both no code and coding freelance projects. It'll be addressing all of them. The difference between being a contractor versus freelancer, all these things we will continue to walk through, right? Where is he going off in? I'll address that in a little bit. But most importantly, everybody, I hope you'll have an amazing day. Yeah, he is. Poor guy. You'll have an amazing day. That's the call for today. I will see everybody here on Thursday, actually, because that's when the sessions will be done, because Tuesday and Thursday are full-time sessions. You'll have an amazing day. Can't wait to chat with y'all more. And I'll see you here soon. And don't forget, let me know your takeaways in Discord. See you, everybody.